well. And some of them have, the terms that say, hey, well, this is going to convert at this low price. When the price is up here, it's a win-win, other than having to pay the taxes.
Right. So we do that, and we're very good at that, always have been. And on the stock side, we're fixed income investors. Our investors expect us to generate yield. So that pushes us into the dividend-paying stocks for the most part. I would say from a bottom-up perspective, our research group does a tremendous job at uncovering value. What I ask my analysts to do is really understand what the assets of a company are worth. Okay, this is our fixed income analyst. This is typically, you think of equity.
Meaning in event of a default, what do we end up with as?
But what is the value? Because then I can look at the cap structure and I can say how well is that debt covered. And then I can have a view on the stock too. So oftentimes where we see the best value is that in the equity market misses it is when a company is going from say low quality, but is all of a sudden moving up rapidly from a credit fundamental perspective. That starts to accrue eventually to the stock. It sort of goes from sort of worry about the leverage to, we're not worried about it. The risk premium starts to come down the stock and it starts to...
So when you're doing your fixed income corporate analysis of bonds, you can also identify mispricing on the equity side?
Absolutely, yes. We see it all the time.
That explains this sort of pet thesis I've had for many, many years. A lot of my favorite equity analysts began as bond analysts or are fund analysts with opinions on equities, and it's very different than the equity side, perhaps because of that exact reason. They're really in the minutia of cap table, the corporate structure, what the priorities are, and that really seems to provide a lot of insight into what is this company really worth going forward.
I agree. We see it all the time.
So let's talk a little bit about your clients. Loomis Sales manages well over $300 billion, $340 billion. Who are your clients? I know they're primarily institutional and they're spread out over 20 countries. Is it U.S., Europe, Asia? Who and where are your clients?
The most of our asset base is in North America, as you would expect, being a U.S. manager, but we've expanded both in Europe and Asia. I think is the biggest pot of money outside of the United States. So we're pretty much everywhere. We have offices now in Singapore, for Loomis offices in Singapore and London, and that's something that's grown as I've grown over there. It's been fun and internationally. Well, my client base, half of it is retail. We're either doing our own funds or sub-advising on that half, and so we're dealing mainly with the big wirehouses like the Merrill Lynch's of the world, etc. The FAs are investing in the funds. That's for the most part. RIAs too, places like that. And then on the institutional side, we do, of course, all private pensions, sovereign wealth funds, public pensions, Taft-Hartley plans, insurance, all of that.
Really interesting. How often do you get to London or Singapore?
I go to Asia. My wife's from Sydney. I was just in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. Interesting contrast between the U.S. and Sydney right now. So there's a sort of asymmetry. Now, when I was over in Sydney visiting family and doing some business, you talk to people there, their mortgage bills is hitting their pocketbooks right away. Right. A little bit of a lag, but it's killing them right now.
Right.
And, inflation is tough there. The same themes here are there, but you can start to see it there.
Coming up, we continue our conversation with Matt Egan, portfolio manager and head of the discretion team at Loomis Sales, discussing the state of the bond market today. I'm Barry Richholtz. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio.
World markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update. Milwaukee is preparing for the Republican National Convention next week.
We can't plan for everything, but we do have a lot of plans, a lot of resources.
Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman says his department has been gearing up for about 2 years. There will be protests outside the secure area. Norman urges those demonstrators to protest peacefully.
Don't destroy anything. Don't touch anybody in violence.
Roughly 50,000 are expected to head to Milwaukee. 2 people living in one of New York City's migrant shelters have measles. This outbreak is taking place at the Hall Street shelter in Brooklyn. It's unclear where the 2 people contracted the disease. but the city's health department is working to find out if anyone else has been exposed. If so, they'll need to quarantine for 21 days. Eddie Murphy and longtime girlfriend Paige Butcher are married. The actor and comedy icon tied the knot with the Australian model Tuesday on the Caribbean island of Anguilla. It was a private ceremony with family and friends, including the couple's 2 children. I'm Rob Marks here.
And I'm Denise Pellegrini in the Bloomberg Newsroom. President Biden vowing to keep up the fight for re-election, as they've been reporting, and also pointing to his rival, former President Donald Trump, as a convicted criminal, rapist, and bad businessman with 6 bankruptcy filings. Biden also